So we'll call to order January 22nd, regular board meeting at 6:00. And I think we've got the director missing. Have we heard anything from request? All right, so I guess we can call the roll, Allison.
Director Berg.
Here.
Director Quillisi.
Here.
Director Martinson.
Here.
Director Kintosh.
Here.
Director Ulrich.
Yep.
And Chair Stone.
Here.
We have Director Curtis absent tonight.
Thank you. All right. You stand for the pledge of allegiance. Ready? Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Jeff or Allison, is there any additions to or amendments to the agenda?
Nope.
Any public concerns? Anybody outside that wants to say anything?
Only one is on is Travis.
All right, then I guess we'll move on to 6 and 7.
I mean, I'd like to withdraw all the minutes out and take care of them separately.
Okay.
Oh, here comes Jack.
Well, we'll take a second after while Jack gets in and gets set up.
All right.
Not too late.
No, we're just starting.
Time.
This roll call, too bad.
This your spot.
You're getting in here just for the fun stuff.
Good job.
I made it anyway.
Yeah. Good to see you, Jack.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, we can pull the minutes out. That's separate if you like.
Move for approval. 7.
Do you want to sit in there or you can?
He's a people watcher.
Here we have a motion for item 7.
I'll second the motion for item 7.
You have a motion and a second. Any discussion on 7? Allison, could you take roll for item 7?
Sorry, I stepped away. Who had the motion for item number 7?
I made the motion.
And who was the second?
I seconded.
Director Curtis.
Nothing?
Director Berg.
Yes.
Director Quillisi.
Yes.
Director Martinson.
Yes.
Director Kintosh.
Yes.
Director Ulrich.
Yes.
And Chair Stone.
Yes.
Okay, on the minutes. Are we ready for the minutes?
Yeah, let's go ahead and take item 6.
There were 2 concerns that I had with the minutes. One is on page 3 of the minutes, which is page 11 of the board packet. It says here under Assistant Secretary, it says Director made a motion to volunteer himself to be position of Vice Secretary of the board. They didn't fill in the blank, which is Director Martinson, appoint himself, so there's no record of Director Martinson being voted for this in the minutes.
Which item is that?
It's on item 9 of the minutes.
Got it.
On page 3, second,
Okay.
last paragraph.
Josh made a motion.
No, it was directors. It says director.
Director. Ah,
Director made a motion. We're missing a name. And the second one was a little more concerning to me because it's on page 13. 7, so item 17, it says, board, okay, action. Upon motion by Director Quilici, seconded by Director Burton, passed by a unanimous 6 director roll call vote. I recall voting no on that.
Yes, you did.
And
Yes, you did.
I did. So anyway, I would like the minutes corrected.
Will do.
So I make a motion to adopt the minutes with those 2 changes.
I'll second them.
minutes as amended.
Second the amended minutes.
further discussion on that? Allison, would you call the roll for item 6, please?
Director Curtis,
Yes.
Director Berg,
Yes.
Director Swayze,
Yes.
Director Martinson,
Yes.
Director Kentosh,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
and Chair Stone.
Yes. Okay, moving on to item 8. It's appointments to committees. Thank you, everybody, for sending me your requests. I think I got most people where they would have liked to have been. Couldn't put everybody where they wanted to be though. It'd be pretty good. And then I didn't change any of the outside appointments. Everybody that was assigned to anything outside will still be at the same spots. I can go through those and read them if you like, but they're in the packet. So.
Yep.
And
No vote required.
we
on
didn't
that.
have any vote on that, so let's move on to item 9, annual investment policy. Palmer?
So this is really a thing we do every January. This is really to confirm that we're going to comply with state law as it relates to our investments. State law is very restrictive in what we can invest in, what we cannot invest in at all. Very conservative. It doesn't allow us to invest in stocks. It doesn't allow us to invest in things that are not highly rated in terms of their investment grade. So really, this is just a requirement every year that we adopt it and say, basically, we're going to comply with state law and the rules that the state has related to investments.
It's a pleasure.
Move approval of 9A, excuse me.
Okay.
Motion to second for 9A. Any discussion or concerns? Seeing none. Allison, would you call the roll, please?
Director Curtis,
Yeah.
Director Berg,
Yes.
Director Quillisi,
Yes.
Director Martinson, Kentosh,
Yes.
and Chair Stone.
Yes. Moving on to item 10, district credit card issue or change from Chase Bank to Umpqua Bank. Resolution 2024-02. Palmer.
So this is, as we wrote in the staff report, this has kind of been an ongoing process. Years ago, and most corporate banks require that someone, a person, is tied to our credit card account. That happened to be Brenda from.
Signer for the district.
Yes, that happened to be Brenda for years. And obviously she wants her name off of the district's credit card. But we've been looking around to try and find another bank, and they really don't offer a credit card type structure for small special districts like ours. And we were able to track down through CSDA, Umpqua Bank offers a credit card for a special district, and it's not tied to any person. It's based on the agency credit worthiness. And so we've set up a program to completely erase our old accounts and get rid of people that were on the accounts. Russ and Pete and Brenda were all on the account. They didn't have cards, but they were listed on the paperwork. And so this will clean the slate and turn it into a purely a district based credit card purchase. Now, we only use the credit card for primarily now it's the electronic world of purchasing things. All of our local vendors we purchase from, Ojai Lumber, hardware, we have open POs. Our employees can go in and purchase something, gets charged to the district. We see the receipt, we see the information, what they purchased. And we have that with some vendors, but some vendors, Amazon, Staples Company for supplies, those sorts of things, don't accept. They won't allow us to come in with a check and hand write out a district check. And so we need a credit card to be able to do those purchases. This is the conversion from Chase system to a bank system.
Berg.
Jeff, does this card have any kind of rewards program? That you accumulate lots and lots of points?
Does it's 1% annual cash back. So they'll either give it to us in a statement credit or they will send the district check at the end of every calendar year based on what we've spent from the prior year.
And normally what we would do on all of those sorts of, we do get sort of income that's not sort of sewer service tax. All of those go into our miscellaneous income account and go right to the bottom line on the general fund. So that money comes in, it goes right in as income to the district. It gets offset to our general fund expenses.
Is that similar in any way to the old card?
The old card offered rewards to some degree. I'm not familiar with what the rewards program was, having not been here when we signed up for that card. Generally, we would apply it at the end of every calendar year towards our final statement. It wasn't a very large.
Okay, thank you.
Is this their thing they have Visa? Was this a Visa card or is this, how does that work?
Yes.
The Visa card. The Chase card, unlike mine, was not a Visa card.
I actually think our Chase is a MasterCard.
It was a MasterCard.
Is it a Visa? It's a Visa. Yeah.
It was just difficult to work with on an account basis
Yeah.
with Chase. Basically impossible to get foundation person.
I've got another question when it's ready for me.
Sure.
On the documents that you provide going through the monthly, there's a photo copy of our Chase statement. Note on that, got our account number listed, so it's out in the public environment. Do we want to redact that in the future just for security?
We can take a look at that.
You see what I'm worried
Yeah,
about?
Redact the Umpqua number at least at this point. This one is gonna get.
Got our account number right on there for our
Yeah.
Chase card.
See that.
I've got no others.
Mr. Quillisi.
I'm curious. I asked some questions before the thing about the card, but who is currently carrying cards or able to use the account? And who will be able to use the account at Umpqua?
We have a number of cards that we currently have. I think Rick has one. You have one. Yan has one. Yan's is primarily what we use for all of our electronic purchases. I have one and Allison has one. And we're going to a more department-based. So we'll have an IT one, we'll have an engineering one, we'll have collections. So it'll be much more structured to the department rather than the person. We'll get rid of all the people completely, you know, in terms of tied to that person. It would be more of an engineering, accounting, so forth. We can set individual limits on any of those. We see all the bills, we see all of the receipts. You will go through any card or any account for district, and there's only one time you'll see a lunch on it, and that's when we buy pizza staff as a whole for a safety lunch. There are no employees going out to lunch with a vendor on a card kind of thing. Period. Does not happen. It will not happen. There won't even be, can I? The answer is no. Used for district purchases only. Or any involves any individual person or lunch or. We have a monthly statement that we see, and we have to take that statement and tie it. It's a little bit of a, quite a bit of labor, because you take the credit card account, you take the receipts, and you tie them up. So we make sure we have feet for every dollar. And then you got to figure out what it actually and which account to charge it to in our budget, because you can have supplies for collection, office supplies for treatment plan. You got to tie all those to budget. So it's quite an exhaustive process.
Is that something you do or Allison?
Taylor does it, and then viewed by Allison.
Thank you.
And do we have a separate gas credit card that we use? Is that on this account or a different account?
It will go on to this account. We have a separate one now. It's the WEX Bank. So the district vehicles can be fueled up one of two ways. They can go down to the treatment plant and fuel up from our gasoline or diesel tanks we have there. There's a log that you log the vehicle, the mileage, the gallons used, and the date every time you fill up at the treatment plant. And that log then is tied back to the vehicles, so we know which vehicles are, filling up and how often. That's one way. Or you can go to almost any gas station and there's a card, and you put it in just like you put in a credit card. And in order to actually start the gas, you have to punch in an operator code so we know who actually used the card, and you have to put in the mileage of the vehicle that you're in. And so all of that comes through on that statement. So that's WEX Bank today. So we have WEX Bank on the gas and we have Chase on the credit card. All of that will be offered through the Umpqua card, both a gas and a credit card function. So we won't have to have the two cards.
Any more questions? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion and a second.
And A and B.
And B. Any further discussion? Last chance. Allison, call the roll, please.
Curtis,
Yes.
Director Berg,
Yes.
Director Quillisi,
Yes.
Director Martinson.
Yes.
Director Kintosh,
Yes.
Director Ulrich, and Chair Stone.
Yes.
Moving on to item 11, Santa Ana Lift Station number 2, wet well pump replacement, budget adjustment number 202414.
So Santa Ana is going through a number of changes. Our engineering team and collection team have been working on it for quite a while, trying to figure out exactly how to do it. The Santa Ana Lift Station is down on the west end of Santa Ana Road, west of the river, almost to Santa Ana, the Santa Ana Boulevard. Riverside.
The other Santa
The
Ana.
other Santa Ana. And the reason we have two lift stations on Santa Ana is the area right around the corner market, the mobile home park across the street, and a few houses in that vicinity can't drain gravity-wise to the big Santa Ana lift station, which is right next to the river. And so all of that area kind of goes to Santa Ana number 2, and we pump down the street to Santa Ana. This is Little Santa Ana. We pump the big Santa Ana. So Little Santa Ana serves this small area, and it's got a couple of old single-phase pumps. We've rebuilt them a couple of times. They're susceptible to clogging, depending on rags and debris. And so the guys will watch the flow rate. When the flow rate on the pump kind of drops, they'll go down there and kind of back flush it and try and dislodge the debris. And so we need to upgrade the pumps, but it's only single phase power there as served by Edison. We have the same problem out of Rancho Matilaha. The service to the facility is single phase power. So the long-term solution is to go to 3-phase power, to where the pump manufacturers have a much wider range of available pumps. They don't even make single phase pumps in these sizes anymore. So teams looking at getting Edison to bring in 3-phase power to the facility, so that doesn't happen overnight. So what we've done is we've found a single phase to 3-phase transformer, and that we can install in Little Santa Ana. Go ahead and buy these pumps as 3-phase pumps. Go ahead and install them, have them up and running on 3-phase transformed power, while we go through the process with Edison service planning team to bring in 3-phase power to that facility. Now we're gonna have to do the same thing at Rancho Matilaha, but it's a little less critical in terms of the number of houses and the flow. So this is to buy the three-phase pumps. We've already got the three-phase transformer. And this will allow us to go to the permanent pump solution while we kind of work towards the three-phase Edison system. I expect the process with Edison is going to take some months. It's just one of those things that doesn't happen like it used to on any immediacy. It happens when they can do the service planning design and when they can do the service work. They have to do everything all the way up to the meter in terms of the service. So right. So we'll have some transition time when they're doing that, and we'll work through how to keep it running, and we'll make sure there's accommodations for that. But this is to get the three-phase pumps and really be able to pump what we need to pump there while we move towards the three-phase.
Director Byrd?
Jeff, on lift station 2, what are the horsepower ratings for those pumps there?
It's three.
3 horsepower.
Okay, so um, I know that there are VFDs that have single phase input, 3-phase output on the market. Has anyone checked into those at all?
We've looked at the VFDs. The problem we have for those is we really don't need the expense of the VFD because there's an expense to having the VFD cabinet there as well as the pump. All the pumps now are coming with what they call sort of a soft start. So they don't, just slam the breaker and go. But anytime you go to VFDs, you run the risk of having that VFD go out as well as the pump. You've got another piece of equipment there. That's one of the problems we have down in that area of our system, including at the plant. The VFDs are digital. They're susceptible to voltage brownouts and spikes and stuff. And so almost before we had the Tesla system down at the plant, almost every time we'd have a power outage down on the avenue or along that whole corridor, the VFDs would drop out and they wouldn't restart when the power came back on. And so somebody'd have to come in on call and set the VFDs.
So the VFD thing would be one.
It's another cabinet and another piece of equipment. It's a failure. They're good, but we don't really need the variable frequency output of the pumps. We just need sort of a soft start and a go on or off, not necessarily the ability to change the.
Yeah, it gives you manual control.
A lot of the pumps down at the plant are VFDs because we have to be able to match the flow rate on a continuous basis. On a pump station, it's just sort of an on or off when the float kicks on and it pumps all the way down. Now we do have VFDs at Big Santa Ana, and we have had some intermittent, problems when they get, blocked out because of a power outage. But at Big Santa Ana, the reason we have the VFDs is we have a much more variable flow there. And so during the summertime, when the flow is low, we throttle down those pumps and run them at a lesser speed. Whereas when we got into the middle of the storms last winter and even this winter, we have the ability to kick it up and push the flow pretty hard down the trunk line. But we don't want to run them that hard all the time.
Jeff, is that, I know that Santa Ana, the little Santa Ana's were Cetus is proposing to bring their stuff in at, correct? So are we gonna have to change these again, that design, or we're gonna be able to use those same pumps?
Use these same pumps. That's the second part of what's going on down in Santa Ana is we use the same pumps. We're going to build a much, it's a very small diameter wet well, and the on-off window for those pumps is fairly narrow. And so we're going to have to build a second wet well sort of as a surge tank off to the side, drill a foot diameter new wet well. And we're going to have to upsize the force main. And so we're kind of working 2 or 3 things all at once. The pumps are fine. The 3-phase is fine. We have an engineer working on the force main to get it down to Big Santa Ana. And then the last piece will be to put in that bigger wet well. We don't have the right of way and the property to do that. So that'll kind of be the last piece when we work out how to acquire some right of way there's not enough room in in what we own or the county right of way to put an 8-foot diameter wet well, so we're gonna have to buy some property to do that.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
Motion, to do that.
7A and B.
And B.
Have a motion in a second. Allison, call the roll, please.
Director Curtis,
Yes.
Director Byrd,
Yes.
Director Quillisi,
Yes.
Director Martinson,
Yes.
Director Kentosh,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
and Chair Stone.
Yes. I think now, item 12 is a closed session. I think I would like to move that. Take items 13 through 19. And then we'll come back to 12 and take 20 minutes. Those will be information items. But you want to pull anything off of the information items?
I'd just like to understand the annual connection charge reserve report. It's a separate fenced fund.
Our reserve, our funds, our reserve accounts that accept money specifically for payment of connection fees, capacity charges. They're all required that we have, it's a legal requirement that we have those reserve funds. But we don't spend money out of those reserve funds directly all the time. We spend them out of the collection system reserve or the treatment plant reserve. The reason they're required to have those reserve funds and have this report is because it's a product of our bonds. And so the bond companies want to know, are we getting new connections? What is that dollar amount? How many did we get last year? How many do we have? It's sort of one of the only ways that they can sort of assess whether or not we're financially viable, other than do we pay our bills and do we have a steady income stream. We have a very good bond rating, but the bond companies would really like to see us have more growth. They're fine with where we are, and this is one of the metrics that they use to measure where we are, but they would really like to see some more methodical growth, which we don't control. And so this is one of the ways where they can say, okay, well, you do have a good balance and you are getting some growth and you are putting it aside and you are spending it, methodically and responsibly. It's a report that gives the bond world some indication of who we are.
What kind of growth are they looking for? A reserve, growth in our staff?
Growth in terms of the number of connections and increased revenue. They would love to see our revenue growth and our capacity charge growth exceed inflation costs every year. Which, growing at 2% or 3%, or I just got the inflation year over year, November is 2.8%. They would like to see us growing at something better than that, so they can say, hey, there's new and increasing revenue above and beyond the rate of inflation.
Sounds like a Wall Street mentality.
You go borrow money from the bond market, and Wall Street wants to get knee deep in all your stuff. Now, we're fine. We have a good bond rating. Every time we've refinanced, we've gotten very, very financial reviews for our audits, for our performance, for our balance sheet. This just is one metric that they look at to say, okay, are you?
If you mentioned that, how many, that's nowhere in this report, so that's something we give somewhere else or
They get it as part of our audit.
some other audit?
Like they actually get, and they get real persnickety. If we don't send them our audit by a certain date, they get real antsy.
You know where you live.
They are on us like, bad habit. you know,
There's a couple of,
It's not part of this report.
there's a couple of supplemental reports that they require we submit with our audit that sort of more defines this in a little
That's all I
more
was
detail.
wondering. It seems to me if you're in an environment of no growth, how can they expect it?
yeah, but, you know, every time we've refinanced, we've had a long conversation with the bond markets about, you know, the land use arena we live in. And they want to see the general plans. They want to see what the agencies are approving or not approving. And I mean, they want to really know who we are, what we are, how we're using their money. Are we a good financial risk for them?
Anybody else have anything they'd like to pull off and discuss from this? Oh, we had any committee reports? We have any committees that met? We're a little early for CASA, correct? We don't meet there till this week.
Yeah, Wednesday, starts Wednesday.
So we will
Receive and file.
receive and file 13 through 19. And we will move on to item 12. We'll go into closed session. 6:31, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, government code 54956.9, paragraph E2 and 3.
We're back recording.
Okay, we're coming out of closed session at 6:49, reconvening in open session with nothing to report. Thank you, everybody. Okay, now we'll move on to item 20, board member and general manager comment. Director Ulrich.
Yeah, a couple of days ago, there was an interesting article in the LA Times about a problem that Orange County sanitation is encountering related to easement on a trunk line. Actually, it sounds like a 69-inch main line, but they're a big system, so I don't know. They apparently have this 69-inch, I'm going to call it a main line, that is an easement within a 30-foot easement that shares a right of way with a railroad track and the backyards of 30 residential lots, half a mile of pipe. And in December, because apparently, according to the explanation given by OC Sanitation to the LA Times, they've been 1959 installation. They're a little concerned about it. Kind of, you know, it's getting to the end of its lifespan, and apparently this is a large enough thing that, you know, doing a diversion and lining it or something like that. I'm sure they've looked at it, but they didn't go into those details. The issue is in December, they sent these 30 homeowners a notice saying, oh, by the way, you all have built your CMU block wall at the back. Bear in mind, these are people that their property backs onto a railroad right away. I don't know if it's a siding or if it's a line, but they're used to the railroad being over there. They all have CMU block walls. That's a half mile of block wall. And a lot of them have pools, swimming pools and improvements that they've built, patios and whatnot in their backyard. And of course, OC San says, y'all have built onto our easement and we'd really like it if you'd remove it. You have 30 days. So suffice it to say, some of these folks that, you know, you're kidding. They talked to the city. They started, you know, some of them talked to attorneys. You know, one of them who was featured in this article has an above ground pool and said, you know, we don't mind if somebody wants to crane it up, but we have this above ground pool and all of these extensive ramps because we have a severely disabled son, and that's why. So there's not a lot of good optics from the perspective of the agency. So they backtracked. OC San said, well, you know, we are using public money here, but we will take out these improvements on our dime, or on the public's dime, as the case may be. But we still need it taken out, removed, so we can access the. Now everybody's asking the question, where exactly is the pipe? Is there any way of addressing this? Blah, 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 blah. And all I got from it was a big question, which is, where this agency is relative to easements and pipes. And I know there's some sections of the system that doesn't have what I characterize as patented easements for those parts of the system. And that means in an emergency, homeowner can technically deny access. Maybe not so technically, actually, absolutely. So the issue from my perspective is this just kind of reminded me that easements, and somebody somewhere back in the day obtained this easement, they put the pipe in OC San, but then they didn't monitor the fact that all these folks were building all of these improvements, including a half a mile of CMU wall, right smack down the middle of the easement, even if the pipe's not beneath it immediately. So, and none of that's clear from this article. This is a newspaper article. So I think, I guess my question is have we made any movement relative to getting the system easements in place?
So we have a map in the back of, parts of it up on top of the cabinet. It's where all our private easements are. We walk all our easements either through cleaning or through inspections every year to make sure we walk them and know where they are.
What are you saying when you say a private easement?
We have a sewer easement through private property. We have some areas where we have an easement and it's only 5 feet wide, and we know our pipe's in the easement, but we'll have an 8 or so inch pipe in a 5-foot easement. Now, a 5-foot easement does not provide you sufficient room if you had to go in and dig it up. What we have done is we've prioritized lots of those easements and we've lined them so that we've gotten rid of all of the potential for cracks and misaligned joints
Go in after it.
and having to go in after them. And so our ability to get in the pipe is from out in the street. And we're very confident that the piece of pipe through the substandard width easement, although it's substandard in width, the pipe is in really good condition because it's lined and it's one continuous piece of pipe. So we do monitor that. We have several different classes of encroachments into our easements, and our inspectors and engineering team and collection system team are very aware of where our easements are and anything that's built over easements. I don't think we have any pools or any structures built over any of our easements anywhere. We do have some places where people have built a wood fence or a chain link fence across it. We've had conversations with property owners who've built a fence that blocks access to it. If we could put in a gate, and we've cooperated with the property owner to maybe take their wood fence and put in a section of gate so we can get through to inspect a manhole. So we're pretty in tune with our system and getting to places. I've heard of situations like this. I don't think we have gross structural major kinds of problems.
Since this was put in 1959, it was farmland. Cracks there, no houses. So obviously the improvements were put in subsequent and then they weren't monitored necessarily by big growth area, big fast growth. So what you're saying then is the entire system has easements?
Yes, we do not have places where we do not have an easement. We have got a couple of places where we would like to maybe change access to an easement. It's one of the benefits of having our easement machine in that we don't have to drive down someone's driveway with a heavy piece of equipment and worry about damaged driveway when we can just drive our little ATV sized equipment. We do have some places where we want to sort of adjust those easements. And then we have some areas that are tight. There are some areas down below Bristol, that neighborhood, when the city built the system, they allowed 5-foot sewer easements, not 10 or 15 foot. And so we have some areas where they have tight easements, but we do have an easement. There's no houses over it, pools over it. There was a house construction up here and a pool construction up here on Tico that we became aware of, and we went and made sure they didn't put their pool over the over the sewer easement that goes along the creek behind Tico. So we're very aware of this, and access and so forth is,
Aren't any issues with the run that transitions through Villanova?
yeah, we have a road over it. We don't have an easement, but we do have documentation of cooperation with the archdiocese. We would we made sure they didn't build there anything over the line when they built the field, the football field. No footings, no bleachers, no restrooms, nothing like that.
What size is that one?
I think it's a 12-inch that runs across there.
That's all I have.
It is an issue, and it's something that the engineering team looks at every time we're doing construction and lining and pipe bursting, and where do we go and how do we do it? We do have some tight areas, but line those areas and you know, you kind of gotta live with it and do what we can.
Director Curtis.
It is municipal, that's a little problem on Oakview. Listen, build a house right over their line.
Yeah, the house, the first house on, as you go into Dolls there, the first house on the right past the Dolls parking lot, was built right over Casitas's, I think it's about a 60-inch water line. And they've come to an agreement with the property owner that the person who lives in it live in the house till they die, and then it reverts back to Casitas and they'll take the house down. But that house is built right over the top. I think it's a 60-inch water line.
We'll have some lines in Ojai. The people, it's up in the people property. Lines are up there. 3 or 4 houses just came across the front of their property. Put the line in. They're all private. Come up.
We have at a couple of past meetings talked about an employee satisfaction survey.
Yes.
Where do we stand on that? Who is putting it together?
So we now have a personnel committee. My schedule was to schedule a personnel committee meeting as soon as possible and go through a number of human resources and personnel sort of actions. And one of them is a survey. One of them is our class and comp study. One of them is our personnel handbook update. So the first meeting we'll hold as soon as we can. And my thought was, rather than proposing any actions, was sit down with the committee and say, here's the 2 or 3 pieces of product we need to work on. How do you see it? What do you want in it? How do you want us to move forward? Any information that we can provide to you before we go forward. So that would happen hopefully in the next week or so, having that personnel committee and outlining all of those issues.
Yeah, I know we have CASA this week, but I would really like to see if we could get something set up for next week on that.
Yeah, it's fun.
Anything else from the board? Yep.
So a few things, I'm going to pass around a couple of pictures here. We talked in the past about first picture is the before and the after. You'll be able to tell the pictures. This is the sewer issue at the corner of Park and Pleasant up there in Topa School. Friday, the issue came to a head. The city went out, tested the water. Its water was coming up out of the ground, seeping up out of the pavement. And it's nowhere near our sewer main. It's right in line with a Casitas water line. And so we had said, hey, it's not a sewer main issue. And Casitas says, well, it's not a water line issue. Well, it blew up on Friday. The city went out and took a water sample and it had E. coli in the water. So we went up and took our camera, put our camera up the main line. The main line's fine. Put our camera up the main line with a lateral launch up the private property owner's lateral, got in about 20 feet and hit a pile of dirt.
Blocked lateral?
Block lateral dirt. So we went up to the house and put a camera down the house lateral and got about 30 feet away from where we were stopped and hit dirt and rocks. So the water was still seeping up out of the ground.
Residents never noticed?
The residents noticed, but there was no backup into their house. Essentially, all the sewage, as you can see from the pictures,
Little septic system.
there's a broken private lateral.
There's a leach field.
Yeah, there's a broken private lateral where the water line was right on the lateral. And it looks as something, as a possibility that when they put in the water line, they dropped the water line on the lateral and cracked the top of the lateral. And over time, maybe pressure in the water main as it moved over time, cookie and top of the lateral collapsed in and then the dirt collapsed in.
The lateral made it.
It was a cement pipe, a very brittle pipe. So meanwhile, we have sewage running down the city street. And so the fortunate part was it was only down about 2.5 feet, which is well below code, but we dug it up and put in a replacement piece, and solved the problem. I've sent the pictures over to Casitas for their information about how they install water lines, and unfortunately, it's a problem where it's not ours. Casitas says it's not theirs. The city says it's not theirs. Meanwhile, you have raw sewage running down the city street. So we took care of it Friday and solved the problem.
So do we need to report that as a spill?
No, because we'll report the private lateral being broken as a spill, but our operations know because it was part of the cleanup. So a couple other things we got approved. It was the regional board approved our new operating permit for the treatment plant on its December 21st meeting. It goes 5-year permit goes into effect on February 1st of this year. So some of the it's got operating parameters, but some things that they were going to go require us as special studies as part of that permit. One is conduct a recycled water investigation. The state of California is requiring every sewer agency when they update their NPDES permits to look at recycled water. Obviously, it's the same old issues. We don't control the water. City has first right, the environmental issues on the river, but we need to do a recycled water investigation. We need to do a toxicity investigation and reduction plan. So there's this parameter that you treat water and you test the water, and there's no known contaminants in the water, but you have to put the water in a beaker, your effluent in a little beaker, and you basically buy at the lab and put them in there. These little sand fleas like you see at the beach, they're called daphnias, and they're little tiny fleas, and you put them in the water and they have to stay alive for a certain amount of time. If they don't stay alive, your water's toxic. Now, you don't know why it's toxic, but something in the water, even though you can't measure what the parameter is toxic. So you have to do this toxicity test every month. So we don't have problems with toxicity issues, but we have to do this new plan. What happens if we do have a toxicity issue or a toxicity failure on a test? What do we do to investigate why? So they want a toxicity emanation test. So we'll do that.
Standard purebred sand fleas and all that.
Oh, there's a whole market for Serradaphnia dahlias and another one, and somebody's growing them and somebody's using them. And we also need to do within 12 months, we need to do a climate change vulnerability assessment and mitigation plan. We have to tell the state if in the next 100 years, because of climate change, something might happen at the plant, that we know how to deal with it. There's a whole subset of engineering and science about climate change vulnerability. Then actual permit changes. One, we have to do effluent PFAS testing quarterly. So we don't have to do anything with it. We just have to test for it. We have to do effluent metals testing instead of semi-annually. We have to do that now quarterly. It's mercury, selenium, some of the metals. And then there's 4 priority pollutants that go from semi-annual to quarterly, cyanide, chloroform, and naphthalene, which is a product of dyes and insecticides. So they're sort of upping the frequency of some of these caustic chemicals. So that's sort of the over under on our permit starting February 1st. That's about it.
You got in parts per billion?
Each test is different. Some of the tests are pushing parts per trillion now. Years ago it was parts per million, the old 1 drop of water in an Olympic swimming pool kind of thing. And depending upon the test accuracy and precision, some tests are accurate to now billions, and some are even into the trillions parts per trillion.
How good is this new permit being good for?
It's good for 5 years. Everything else stays the same. These are the only highlights of things that are different than we are doing today. New study, go study this, and some new tests on a new test or a more frequent basis, providing those test results. We do about 10,000 tests a year. You add up all of the constituents we test for on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, and semi-annual and annual. Some things we don't test for all the time. Some things we test for daily and weekly. It adds up to about 10,000 tests a year we do.
The average cost for one of those tests?
We do a lot of them in-house. Some of these vary, these priority pollutants and some of the heavy metals and all of the petroleum-based tests are done out of the lab. We probably spend about $100,000 a year in tests and about another $100,000 a year in lab reports and lab equipment and so forth. I mean, it's a big number. It's not a astronomically crazy number, but it's not insignificant, the amount of dollars we spend on testing and identifying these things.
Unfunded mandate.
The list, I'll give it to you if you want it. I mean, it's like an organic chemistry list. The list of things we test for is pages long. Every variation of 2,2,4 heptapentathlene something or other. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Thanks, Jeff. Anybody got anything else? Questions? We will stand adjourned at 7:10.